get to it.
Let's go!
So I think I missed a big old pot of blood.
Blood?
And I need it for doors. Yeah, just a big old blood pot. You sometimes need those for doors.
Just need a little blood for the pot.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
so blood for door, for key. A blood key.
My god.
Mediocre
Head.
Mediocre.
Isn't it because he's using a gun and they're all actually bad? Actually?
He hasn't had a good weapon, really, for a little while.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he only looks big. Because he actually is big, but we've just given him trash. Understandably so.
Trash to work with.
Well, that's because we went through all of our non-trash.
Yeah, we smashed it over the heads.
Oh, poor little baby bat.
Dog's got it handled though. Dog is like a like an angry truck.
Angry magic truck.
Yeah. Go away. Edward gun level went up.
Hey, will that make it
Well, we
better?
like to see that at least. Can we get the finish from James? Dead quick?
No.
No. No, 56 and then 0? That's not quite gonna do it.
Oh, buddy. Hey!
I did use a lot of shotgun shells to kill that man unimpressively.
Yeah. It's pistol rounds that we have too many of, right?
And rifle.
And right. Okay.
We have a lot of bullets.
Many bullets. Jesus Christ.
I might as well. Let me try and remember to reload. Yeah, we have 99 rifle rounds and 99 pistol rounds. I don't know why my shotgun rounds are. Oh, we got a few.
I think we're doing okay on those.
We're just doing alright on ammo.
Yeah.
We haven't really been using it, because all the guns are bad.
Yeah.
Is this where the couple were?
Yeah!
So we want to run past them.
Where the dead bodies so nicely moved out of the way.
And those are pistol bullets, which we can't
Don't
have.
need.
Too many of those just lying around. Okay,
Those
so
just
here,
live there.
we can go around this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can run over here.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Bottle of blood.
Heck. What do we need? Do we need 33 ferns? I can't remember what they do. They cure all statuses, right? That might be handy. The elixir's gone nowhere. Antidotes, though? Just antidote? Only for poisoning? Those go.
Only for poison. Get it out of here.
I'd like a bottle of blood, please.
Thanks for the bottle of blood.
Oh, you can actually just go straight across there.
Well,
You don't have to run all the way around. That's fine.
Yeah, but if you run all the way around, you get to see a nice, lovely, all the lovely little environments that they've provided for us. So is the bottle of blood for the lady in the wall?
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't mean it again.
Consider. See, well, at least they weren't too far away from each other.
As the scent of blood from the bottle enshrouds the statue, it begins to shake.
Stinky blood.
It's been there a minute.
Oh God. Oh! It's a creature of some kind. Why he look like this?
Do we need to bring in the emigre file?
Don't we have that?
Is it a read or a tool? We have Daniel's arm, we have Grem hat, we have tinderbox, we have acid. It's mask. We have mask.
Grandma hat. I understand.
Is it a read? We do not have the emigre file.
Oh.
We have a guy who wants it. Well, we could go bother a lad again.
Our good friend Ralph Bacon.
Yeah, it's probably faster this way, right? Because we open the front door.
Probably.
Plus, I can't remember the other way at all. No.
Oh god, it's gunman.
No, gunman, please.
Long head gunman.
It's got nothing. Didn't even see us.
Get out of there. It's bad there.
Like a shadow and never detected. It's like when I'm playing Metal Gear Solid. No one ever suspects a thing. There may have been secret streams of Metal Gear Solid 2. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry. It's fine, actually.
Well, at least we got the bottle of blood issue out of the way.
Yeah!
If only he wanted the bottle of acid.
Consider, sir. Might I interest you in this lovely bottle of acid?
We managed to find a key item and then use a key item.
Within, like, 2 minutes of each other. Wow! That's never happened before!
Where is door? Is it the one above me?
Maybe?
On the map? One to the north? Because I don't see any other doors. I thought we were across, but I might be wrong.
Oh. I've forgotten everything about this map
That makes
since
sense.
the last time. So, you know.
Well, there's a door. That's a good start. Yeah!
Progress in the right direction.
Does our friend know where the thing is? The MacGuffin?
Ralph Bacon.
Ralph.
Thought it was Ralph.
Do you need acid, Mr. Bacon?
It's definitely Bacon.
It's Ralph Bacon. I thought it were Ralph Bacon. When you said Ralph Bacon, it sounded correct.
Or is it Ron Bacon? Roger!
Roger Bacon.
It's an R name.
Oh, Cuzzy?
Maybe? Roger!
I know it's here. I saw it here. I put it here. What? Have you come round to see me again?
I want you to look at this.
Research journals.
I want you to tell us whether what's written there can actually happen or not.
Well, let me see. Yes,
I love this
yes,
little
I
goblin
see.
man.
Oh, that's right.
very
Resurrecting
good.
the dead. Ooh, a cauldron. The Branwyn tales, indeed.
Cauldron.
Yes. It is most likely that the events detailed here did take place.
Just as I thought. But that's so frightening that
Personally, I have not attempted it. I am certain that the Immigrant document contained accounts
Roger's
of
like,
secret
wait, I'm not done
rituals
yet.
conducted to resurrect the dead. But as you can tell from reading this, it involves complicated preparatory work. I had given up discerning the impossibility of fusing the psychic powers necessary to create such an immense psychic platform. Moreover, I never expected that people would attempt to challenge such a feat.
The journals say that the physical body was resurrected, but not the soul.
Absolutely. The ancients held the secret to life in the palm of their hands. But they could never come close to touching the secrets of the soul. They resurrected
I
the
have a hand,
dead
would
in
that
order
help?
to use their physical bodies as a workforce.
Fucking am, I don't know what to do with it. I've had the
thus
whole
building
game
the
just been holding on to it.
Yeah.
I speak of. In fact,
Been there
we'd
for a
not
minute.
be far off if we called them puppeteers. Exploiting the human body as an
Oh.
object.
If so, then wouldn't
Yes, resurrecting the dead and restoring them to life as it was before death is impossible.
Then how do you return the resurrected body once again to Earth?
I love this dumb idiot man.
That is a very complicated question, since it already defies universal logic.
Please.
It is no easy task.
Tell me how. It's Woody Lane, God rest her soul, wanted.
Right. It is not absolutely impossible, but I would need to call forth the sacred powers in order to complete such a feat. Oh, yes. I know that the arm of Daniel Scotius.
Got it.
Hey, we have that.
This monastery is stored in a stone statue on the ground.
Please take this arm off me.
If we throw that into a cauldron, we will successfully destroy the roots of the tree of life. Oh, after that, I haven't a clue whether to call forth the
No, a
energies of fire or entrust the task to water. It is so complicated.
Fire or water.
What are we going to do?
Oh, Heavenly Father, bless our souls and bring forth an end to this suffering. Oh.
So dramatic.
Oh.
I love it.
Silly little lad. Do you have a cauldron, silly little lad?
We got an arm. You got a bucket.
Got an arm, we just need to get the stew going.
Delicious.
Fuck. I was sliding.
Roger, you got some ghosts in your library. Should look at getting rid of those.
Gus got nothing. I'm gonna give a rifle to Ed while he's just running around, because the rifles are trash.
Makes sense.
And
Start getting those bullets out of your inventory.
Yeah, it levels up the same thing as shotgun, I think, but it's really bad.
Rifle.
Rifled. There you go, Ed.
Hey.
Hang on. We need a cauldron. You got to put an arm in it. Let me check the map actually. Does that room got a tick? I don't know if the ticks, like, I'm not sure I believe them.
I feel like those are
anymore.
exclusively for, like, extra pickups and not necessarily key items.
Even then, though, I'm not sure I believe them. Bad ticks. Sit down. Okay, can't go over there. That's banned. I think we tried before.
Not allowed.
Is this the place where it's like, oh, that's gonna be disc 4, you can't go there?
Oh god. Oh no!
Were they a cauldron near disc 4? That's the portrait. We might have to run back through in a second, I'm sorry. It's a save room. Well, we talked to Mr. Bacon, so...
Thank you for the help, Mr. Bacon.
Thank you, Bacon Man.
Bacon, bacon, bacon man.
need a big old pop. Go down. Hey, what you won't go down.
Oh god.
Why does the camera do that? Check upstairs. I can't remember what's there either. We're gonna have to run around a lot because I don't remember where anything is.
Yeah.
It's fine. This guy looks slightly redder than the regular ones. Rifle bad. Oh, he goes before James.
Oh.
Go game, James. $82 and then 90. That's slightly better than last time I told you to attack. Alright, don't want any trouble. Keep doing what you're doing, James. Get some pickups, James. We're running out of weapons. Go, Jarring. What's a Jarring?
Dring.
Ooh, fire Jarring.
Ooh. It's good
Is that
for...
better than what... It's the same as what you got. Well, it's better than a regular non-J ring. Give it to James so he can have 57 pies.
Dring for James?
I should probably drop some of my stupid rings. Is it Rosario that's just trash?
I think so, yeah.
Go in the bin at Rosario.
Dang.
I think I only have like so many inventory slots between all of these things.
Stupid.
Go
That is
upstairs.
a choice? I'm trying to think of things that like we haven't done yet. We still haven't... Are we able to get to that room where the body was, where we picked up the tinder box? And it's like, you can't pass because you need a way to burn Elaine or something like that.
I remember what you meant.
Just don't remember where it is.
I don't remember where it is. I was hoping
Okay.
you were around here because I was
Okay.
planning to check. Wait, it is. I think it's in the. It's where we need to weigh Delk.
Yeah. This is
Just over
vaguely
here?
familiar to me. Like I said, I'm just trying to think of like other things that we haven't done. And that's like the main one that's sticking out to me. Yeah. This is it.
Yeah, if I go to here, it's like it's disc 4. You can't go here yet. Oh no.
Yeah, but consider, what if we go here now?
Okay, we just needed to talk to the Bacon Man again. The Bacon Meister.
Thank you, Baconman.
Is there a big old pot around here, do you think?
Do you think we could substitute a cauldron with a bathtub?
I mean, I think they're the same thing.
Cauldron-esque. Ooh. And then they kiss.
I just wibbled them. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh. No,
Oh.
you're alright. I'm good for kissing rounds right now, actually.
Roman
Romani.
nuts!
Always always take Roma nuts.
Oh god.
Oh, Roofman and a friend.
Friend, easy peasy. Roofman, just a little scary. Ooh!
Oh, he shoots 2 now. Does that also use up 2 bullets?
That's a good question.
I'm guessing the answer is yes.
Probably. I mean, that'll get us through those rifle rounds pretty quick, though. So that's exciting. Jesus, fuck.
I don't know what good moving over here will do, but we're gonna...
Keeps him from getting
Go quick.
closer.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't... I don't know if that helps.
Doesn't hurt?
Yeah.
Good job, Delk.
Good job, Del.
I mean, it gives you the room to, like, wiggle around as you need to. It doesn't necessarily keep him from hitting you, but you're not like, stuck to the one spot. So that's nice.
Just the one this time.
Ed.
Two this time.
Hey.
This
Thank
is
you.
getting some okay damage out, actually. Really? You went before Delk, and Delk... What?
And shot through James?
Yeah.
We can't do that!
No, I've tried to do that. It didn't work. I thought he'd just walk to the side and shoot her anyway. Actually, I thought James's cure would ever go off. It's the main thing I thought would happen. We know now. James is bad
Never.
at things. Do not trust James.
James is bad at healing. James has let us down a little bit with being a meat shield. I'm a little disappointed with James right now, if we're being honest.
Mexico 60. Maybe James needs to go a little bit faster, considering the incident that just occurred. We know now.
James.
Delk casts gear spells, everyone else just throws stuff. We have potions. It's like shotgun shells. Fucking doll. What do I do with stupid dolls? Can I not go over to like this whole half of the room?
No.
Yeah. There's nothing around here that says anything about these dolls.
Do you make them all face inward? So keep the first one in the direction it's facing, and then turn the second one? Oh.
Oh,
Okay.
good idea.
It's just a pure guess, but hey, let's go.
Works for me.
Just figured they all want to be looking at the center, you know?
This is a boss, because we're right in the middle of the room where this happened.
Yeah.
Ah,
Oh.
we fought
maybe
this guy
not?
before. He wasn't a boss before.
Get him, Ed.
Keep using those bullets and getting rifle XP, Ed. Doing fine.
Beautiful.
Don't worry too hard about getting him, Ed. It's probably not gonna happen. You know, James might be able to cast spells okay now. Because we have given him a lot of stuff that boosts pi, and those also tend to boost in.
True.
We might be able to throw a spell if we need him to. That were a regular guy. That's just a regular guy. That's just a blue man.
Nobody worry. Just regular dude out.
Yeah. Delk is just carrying an eyeball because she has that cat's eye.
Yeah. I noticed that last stream and I, like, love it.
Just running around with an eyeball.
This is her favorite eyeball in the world.
I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite eyeball in the Citadel. Let me do a temporary save first. Just in case. Beautiful. Something's not okay.
Wow!
Biblically accurate.
Yeah?
Covered in eyes, and then you look at the wings, and then the wings are more eyes. That is a biblically accurate angel.
Be not afraid, it says, as I am very afraid. Oh god.
Hopefully he doesn't like fire. Okay, he's doing a spell. That makes sense. He's got a lot of eyeballs. Those will undoubtedly help the casting process. Seems to do less damage than usual. Probably not weak to fire.
I am very scared.
I'm sure it's fine.
Oh god.
It's Ed for 300. This is fine. Tell you what. Use your rifle until it's out of bullets, and then we'll just bring out the shotgun instead of reloading. Can you take another time? 0. Maybe James can't do anything. Okay, we're out bullets. That happened quickly.
Ed, you went through them a little too fast. Consider slow down. Just a tiny bit. Oh no.
Fuck. That's fine, we can deal with that. He's going so fast as this boss.
Yeah.
So I think he's gonna get shot off before Delk.
Possibly.
But Delk has to attack him because Delk is the damage dealer and deals 100% of the damage. Especially if Ed's missing now.
Yeah.
Nothing. You got nothing.
It is nice that he
Wibbly
doesn't
eyeball
do
man.
too much damage. He's like, I really like this boss design.
Yeah, it's horrible. Okay, he loves that. So he's back on about full health.
Don't do that ever again! Bad day.
Okay, Ed. Really? That's to be close to it, you know, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know why the shotgun just doesn't hit him.
I can look up boss information if you would like.
It's fine.
Okay.
I mean, he has an elemental resistance to shotguns.
This boy's
James is
got a
not
lot of
getting turns.
nails in him.
Yeah,
Just normal.
it's a bad cap in there. Okay, that heals him too.
Yikes.
Fire hurts him a little bit. The middle two both heal him. I'm pretty sure he's on full health now.
This could be a little bit of a problem.
Can you hit the man, please? I'd like James to do this, but James hasn't had a turn in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Also, I think he's silenced. Hey, it's James's turn.
Hey!
Doesn't happen as often as you'd like. What do you reckon, James? Can you just bash him? While you're here. He's everything misses. Everything misses him. Oh! Okay, let's not, force this boy into a corner. Well, heal's a thing we can do that's probably not gonna heal the boss. Keep going. You're the chosen one, Ed. You're the only one who can hit him.
Ed, please.
Yeah, we can heal a lot more than he does, even with the big hit.
Okay.
We'll just step back a little bit, because he slaps us if we go too close.
I like his little giggle when he slaps, though. He goes,
Okay, I have +9 dexterity, and he is dodging every attack, but he didn't with the rifle, which leads me to believe he does have an elemental resistance to shotguns. I don't understand it, but it has to be the truth.
My one weakness, specifically rifles.
Yeah. Can you go away? Can James have a turn?
No, James is
Why
just
is
there
it
to
never
get
James's
slapped.
turn? Okay, everything heals him except fire, which does very minor amounts of damage. I'm gonna reset.
Fair.
Because we know now.
Oh boy.
Okay, don't go near him. Also, every element heals him except fire. Also, shotguns miss him. Only rifles hit him. He's immune to shotgun shells. They just bounce off his anti-shotgun shell shield.
Maybe we should be a little afraid.
I think it's fine if Doc just blows him up. And we don't go so close he starts slapping.
Yeah.
But I'd healed him to full health, so we might as well restart. Plus,
Yeah.
I don't know if James are ever gonna get another turn.
Never. James was done.
This guy has drastically higher stats than anything I've fought so far, I think, is what's going on. His dexterity is so high that most attacks just miss him. Apparently the rifle's just super accurate or something. And his speed is a lot higher than what James has. But everyone else has been going hog wild on that.
Let's show him who's boss.
Let's give it a go. Wiggly angel.
Horrible. Awful creature.
250 points of honest damage.
Better than a kick in the head? Or a slap to the face?
Flare's the only one that actually hurts him, which is a shame since I've leveled it up so much that it's too expensive.
Yeah.
James is just gonna buff Ed. fact, maybe Ed should buff Ed. It's not going to do much. 31, we can take that. If he silences her, that's going to be a bit of an issue. Did in fact silence her. That's fine. Ed's the damage dealer here. Fortify your own strength, Ed. I want to see numbers above 250 coming out of these attacks. And I guess Delk's going to eat a fern. This guy goes so often.
Yeah. 3 yap.
3 yap.
Crap.
Oh, now everything misses him.
Oh jeez.
I don't get. What are you trying to say again?
He's a bad guy.
Is there like a thing for this, or is it just?
So there
Is it just number way?
No, there is a thing.
Okay.
And it I'm trying to think of a way to hint without just telling you.
I'm not sure it's operates in the same logic that the rest of the universe we inhabit does.
It's not. There is a logic. Pay attention to his movements, I guess.
What?
Don't worry about it.
So that's why he's wibbling so often. Is because every dance he does, you need to do different things.
Yeah.
Okay, he's doing regular dance. He's gonna be doing a different dance by the time a spell comes out.
I think the big one to keep in mind is when he's like having a fit like this.
Is he doing it now?
I think it's hard to tell. Yeah, he's
Alright,
doing it now.
Magic heals him whenever he's doing that. But since magic goes off way too late, there's no way to predict if he's gonna be doing that. And is this when he dodges everything?
Yeah.
So what do you do?
It's recommended.
I'll just buff Ed a bunch.
Yeah, it's
And then shoot him when he
recommended
stops
to
wibbling.
do like physical attacks, as opposed to magic. So buff and Ed, probably a good call.
You make Ed large.
And then do a shoot when he's not wiggling super hard.
Yeah.
Like
Okay,
he should,
stop wiggling.
yeah, he should be good to shoot now.
He did a little bit.
He's a weird guy.
Gonna be here a while, but eventually
But he
Ed's gonna get so large.
He is a fallen angel, so you know.
Oh.
Like actually.
That's why that explains the eyeballs and the halo on his foot. Okay, he's in wibble mode.
He's in wibble mode.
45 strength.
I love that Ed just wiggles aggressively to cast his magic.
Yeah. It makes sense that like he's changing stance and that's why he goes to him for his turn so often. But every enemy in the game has had a different like idle animation when they're casting a spell.
Yeah.
So I assumed it was that.
No,
this is not a good idea for a gimmick.
That's yeah. Yeah, it's a little mean. to say the least.
Kind of dumb. Oh wait, he's wibbling.
Ah, jeez.
You were like still for a second, so that I could shoot him, and then he started wibbling again.
He said jokes!
Yeah. Ed's gonna be so large.
Is there
He
a
sucks.
cap on fortifying
I have
someone?
no idea.
Well,
We're gonna hit if there is. Are you wibbling? I have no bullets, so it doesn't matter if you're wibbling or not. Wait, I can use the shotgun if it's only the wibble tech that dodges the bullets.
shoot him.
He still dodges the bullets. Maybe he does have too high dex to hit good.
Maybe.
Oh. Not a lot's happening. This is incredibly boring. Why does my shotgun not work on this man? Okay, he's very, very still right now.
Do a shoot. Please hit. Okay, alright.
1,000 damage. How much health does he have?
Approximately 9,000.
It's not too bad.
It's around the same amount that the other bosses have had.
Just my main damage dealer can't hit him.
Yeah. Which has
'Cause
really put a damper
it's
on
too
things.
likely to heal him to full health.
Yeah.
Got a little bit more dex. Wibbling a little bit. What do you think, Ed? Nope.
No.
It has to be completely stationary or Ed will miss.
No twitching, no fits. Only still.
Approximately 1/3 of the time you're allowed to play the game.
Horrible.
The rest of the time you might as well put the controller on the floor.
Big.
No, it's wibbling way out of control. There's no way I could shoot him. Actually, do I have bullets? Good time to reload.
Yeah.
And 45 strength. Don't mind if I do. What if maybe I'll level up 45 strength, and then I'll be doing more than 3 points.
That'd be pretty cool. Imagine doing more than 3 points.
It's moving a tiny bit.
But it doesn't look like the twitches.
If he's moving a little bit, he still dodges everything. He has to be not moving at all, or he'll dodge everything. This is... There's 3 phases that I think... And this is his almost stationary phase, but it
Almost
doesn't...
calm.
Yeah, almost hittable.
Horrible.
Get more dex. Maybe we'll be able to hit him in this form someday. Is he doing big wibbles again?
He's doing big wibbles.
Why didn't he ever go no wibbles? Don't know. He's doing very little amount of wibbles. I think he's shootable.
Hey!
Pretty decent shot. Ed's getting quite large.
Good job, Ed.
Go again.
Large Ed.
And now he's in having a fit mode. Tell you what, Ed, maybe you should be going faster.
Imagine. Big fast Ed.
You know how you're really fast, Ed? What if you were faster than that?
My god. That's too fast?
What if you had 9 more points of agility? Okay, swimming a little bit? Still seems to dodge everything when I try and hit him when he's like this. What if you had 12 more points of agility?
Are the little wiggles him casting a spell?
Oh, it could be.
And then big wiggles
As well
is him
as
dodging
you're supposed
stuff.
to watch for when he changes form, he does actually have a different animation for... But no, because he dodges everything when he's doing the little flaps.
Okay.
I've tried to shoot him loads of times while we were doing it. He missed every time.
Well, he's calm now.
It stopped responding to buttons?
Oh no. Game, please.
Why has it done that? Okay, we're gonna save state and what's happened?
You need to unplug and plug your controller back in.
I think my controller's having a bad time. It just went red for some reason.
Oh!
Is Discord trying to use
Discord controller, please.
I
All
like
y'all,
it. Let me
behave.
restart this. We'll get right back to it. What are you doing?
Now everyone can see that we're on Discord.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I fought this guy for so long that my controller got bored.
Controller, please.
Okay, I can do stuff here.
Hey!
It wasn't even unplugged or anything. It just stopped. It just stopped working.
Just said, nah,
Like
no more.
Normally when there's a problem like that, it's because I've karate kicked the something out of the computer.
Oh, this time it just said, no, I'm done.
Oh, big Ed.
Nice.
Consider.
Let's go.
I'm gonna try and shoot him even though he's swimming. Okay, well it worked that time. I swear I tried. I'm not crazy. Poor James. Just getting yeeted.
This is his
does-
job.
Absolutely no damage at all does this boss.
Yeah. Thank
Just a-
God.
Huge pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Unless you walk up to him, he don't like that. Oh, he's going crazy again.
Well, it's a good time to get bigger. And or reload.
So big. I probably should have reloaded. It's gonna stop being crazy mode and I'm gonna have no bullets.
Nice. Still
Okay,
doing-
calm down.
Ooh.
Unless he can be in crazy mode and casting a spell. And the casting the spell...
Animation takes over.
Yeah. Yeah, he's in crazy mode. This is ass. This is tragic. This is awful. Why did they make this? James, you're gonna turn in like 10 turns.
Come on, we gotta be almost there.
You'd hope. He's crazy mad again. We can't do anything, Ed, because he's crazy mad.
Oops.
He's wibbling. Good job, James. You did it. Oh my god, can the guy just fucking do his turn and go back to normal shootable mode?
Angel, please let us shoot you.
You have to be shootable, Angel. Ah,
It's shoot
that
time.
looks like a cam shootable Angel.
He listened. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Hey!
Just needed one more.
Nice!
Great.
You never have to do that ever again. Please save immediately after this.
Took 100 hours.
But you did it.
Did.
2 level ups. 3
3
level ups. Holy shit.
Thousand health.
My
Yeah, crossbow.
God. Nice. Apparently the crossbow is very good, but you want to save it for like the final bosses. Bosses. The end.
I kind of do a boss fight and everyone levels up 10 times.
Right? Very
I
good.
just wanna look at what that crossbow can do for me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
106 strength. Not bad.
Crossbow, good. And it counts as gun, right?
I guess it counts as rifle because there's only rifle and pistol. I think it either counts as pistol or rifle, and you'd assume a crossbow would count as a rifle.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Also, take you stupid. While we're talking about rifles, where's your awful rifle? I hate. Did I need to do that, or was that optional?
You needed to do that. It was
Saving
necessary.
to change the gear around.
No, it makes sense. But he is. You have to fight the boy.
At least that wasn't optional,
Yeah.
because we already done it, and it was a lot. Is there anything on these chairs? Doesn't look like it. No, Koudelka. No one. You never go down the stairs when I tell you to.
She hates the stairs. She's scared of them.
There's some. Oh, it's a cutscene.
There we go.
This must be the temple.
There's no way! If I put a bullet through it, it wouldn't budge.
What about vial of acid?
How ironic.
Or a big old
I
arm?
not have access to the temple.
Koudelka.
No. Arm is for
Go now.
pot.
It is my
How about a
firm
mask
inherent
that wards off
responsibility
goblins?
for this disturbance, and therefore I am partially responsible for this trouble. I have no intention of asking for your sympathy, and I'm in no position to plead for your help.
Is
So
this
from
more
this
quiet
point
than usual?
forward, I can manage on my
A
own.
little bit, yeah.
Don't kid yourself. We didn't
Sorry.
come along just
No,
for
it's
your
okay.
sake.
No, Koudelka, you should go back now. It'll be far too dangerous.
Turns
Edward,
itself
you're the
down
one who should
sometimes.
go home. You were not meant for this world.
I had
Granted, you
wiggle
are a
room
good
on
fighter, having had
Discord,
plenty
so
of experience, and I won't deny the
We
fact that
good.
you have the
But
killer
this is much
instinct
better.
either. But when all is
Sorry.
said and done, you
Oh,
are
it's
an
all good.
average Joe. I am not. I was meant to exist in this realm.
You are an
It's the only
average
place I can
Joe.
carve out an existence for myself.
Quit
Got 'em.
lecturing me. I want no part of a lukewarm existence filled with regret. No. My way is to not worry about consequences and to do whatever it is I want to do. Chance means nothing to me. Life's a gamble. And once you place your bet, you'd better play to win, or else you end up dead.
Edward.
Okay, Ed.
You really are
Edward.
ridiculous.
But they tell me,
Ed.
do as you like. That I will.
Oh, suddenly when you feel like it, you decide when you can and cannot open doors?
Wait, there's a way. Remember when we were searching Patrick's mansion? There was various chemicals around.
Do you need
It
the
may
acid?
take some time, but I think I can combine the chemicals to make nitroglycerin.
Nitroglycerin?
That's great.
So
And then we
acid
run
and
all the way
something
back, innit?
else?
Explosives here. For this door, I think we'll need a full flask. Indeed, if I drop the flask before I return, I'll be knocking on heaven's door in a flash.
And? You say that like it's a bad thing.
I go, and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or hell.
Weak
Do you want me to
bars.
come, or should we just wait?
Do you want us to come with, or do we just...
Oh, shit. That's it. It's in the
Hey!
district. I think we did miss the big weird sword, though.
That's okay. That's fine.
Hang on, it's looking for the games in a stupid place.
Butler Duck. I see all your games. I can see all of them. I saw
Don't worry
Judge
about
Dredd
it.
in there.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did.
I had that as a kid. I remember his Judge Dredd pushes a man off the roof, and then he gets a phone call from his boss who's like, "God damn it, Judge Dredd, you're a wildcat who doesn't play by the rules. We need to talk to the bad guy right away." And Judge Dredd's like, "He's on his way down," because he just threw him off the roof too.
Dang. Also remember to save now that we're on a new disc.
Good idea. Do we have the acid now? Did he go get that for me dead quick, or do I have to walk all the way over there?
James, did you actually do the thing, or when you said that you were gonna do it, you meant that we needed to do it? We need a little clarification on that situation, please.
I need a clarification situation right now. So scary when it shows up with no data on
Right?
the memory card.
It's fine. It's because Duck got us a fresh new one for our disc.
Yeah, thanks, Doc. James. Are you joking?
Oh, jeez.
Well, she won't even look at it. She's not even like...
But we shouldn't have to pay for James's negligence.
How could you, Jim?
Consider.
Oh, where we
What's
go?
up? What are we doing here?
I'm lighting some candles. That was what the tinderbox were for.
Oh!
Give me that bunch of garbage.
Life drinker!
Is that a weapon?
Sword? Sword for Ed?
I should probably check with Ed. What do you think of this life drinker?
Bad.
That's
Bad sword.
life.
Oh, it is. Okay. Sorry.
It's a good life drinker.
I think I saw it, the stats when you went to barehanded, and I was like, that's trash! Don't do that! Yeah, that's what I saw. Okay. Good sword, actually. I'm sorry. I take it back, Life Drinker. You're delightful,
I
actually.
love your life drinker. Does make him less lucky, though. Is there something over there? Probably not, but... I can't see over there, so I might as well check. We got a life drinker. We can drink the life.
Delicious.
Okay, So we have to go to Patrick's house and make some chemicals. Because James said he'd do it and then didn't.
Where does Patrick live?
In Patrick's quarters, right? We've been there.
Yeah, but I don't remember where it was.
I remember where it was.
Okay, as long as you remember, that's really all that matters.
As fun as leveling up 3 times from fighting a boss is, it probably does mean we should pay more attention to some of the random encounters for a little while.
Keep using up those rifle bullets.
Stupid bullets that I hate.
Oh wait, are we using? We're not using a shotgun still, are we?
Nah, I put the shotgun away.
Okay.
I think. Pretty sure I put the shotgun away.
Okay.
Definitely meant to put the shotgun away. Game
jeez.
James. You actually hit him.
Good job, James.
Didn't do a lot of damage, but I'm impressed that he hit him.
He hit, and that's neat.
Oh, jeez.
Good job, Delk! Always so impressed with Delk.
Doug's played this game before. Bird dead. Look at that gun killing the enemies. You don't see that often. Cyril!
Hi,
Cyril, see it.
My friend.
Cyril, I leveled up.
I do like the noise that the birds make when you shoot them. They just go wah, and that's
They don't like
kind of
it when
funny.
you shoot them.
No.
They're not huge
Cyril.
fans.
How are you doing, friend? How's it going?
Has this guy got any more items since we swapped disc? Absolutely not. The lab's like just above where this is, right?
I think so. I think it's in the general vicinity.
We got a cutscene.
Ooh. Do you think it's Roger?
Begin my
Oh.
work.
Oh. Horrifying.
And then...
Oh, we're having a party?
What happened to the girl Melanie?
She was gone the next morning. She left with practically everything in the room.
You don't have much luck with women, do you?
Well, you know what they say. The cleanest breakup is when a woman runs out on you.
What a loser statement.
Why is he like this?
Oh, but you're lucky. I mean, to have
Kish
so many
Cyril's
people to
asking
kid
you
around
questions
with.
and is very
For
excited.
me, I'm all alone.
Sorry, I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm all
It
alone
was
all my life.
I was
What about
laughing
your
at
childhood?
Ed and
Yes,
and
I did
Sorry.
have a
Delka being
childhood.
very silly.
I
I'm
was
doing
born in a
okay. Also,
small
I have
town
listened to
in
the
Wales,
new
right
Ash
at the banks
Nico.
of
Is
the Squeeze
listened to
and
it a bunch
River.
yesterday and listened to it today when I went for my
Where was
walk,
the
and it's
small
very
gypsy
good.
town?
Hey, it's a
Gypsy.
good album.
That's right, gypsy. And we didn't call ourselves gypsy. We called ourselves
Oh, we just
Yeah.
just doing
See, a
slurs
true
over here.
gypsy
We're
was
just
got to
doing
the-
slurs.
born under
She's
the
gonna
blue
light her
sky
head on fire
and
while
She's
doing all the
died
slurs.
under the
She's
same
gonna do all the
blue
slurs,
sky.
set her head on fire, and just full on
So then I
flash
guess
us.
You plan on dying underneath the blue sky.
Oh, jeez.
Delka, please.
Del.
Every gypsy is given a name at birth.
Ah,
My given name
jeez.
was Slato.
Slato.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a strange resonance to that name.
Yeah,
What does
no,
it mean?
new album, very good.
I can't tell you.
What'd you like?
Been
That too
blessed
is the
with good
part of the
music
law.
as of late. Johnny also came out with a new album that's very good.
You know,
He's
ever
been
since
very
I
excited
met you,
about it.
Nice.
enigmatic, mysterious glint in your eyes. And it must be the gypsy in you.
Jesus, Ed!
Can we cool it for 1 minute?
From my soul-searching eye, can raise with hope, depress with fear.
Byron again?
Yeah.
You must really like him, don't you?
Yes.
Why don't you marry him so much if you like him that much?
Bed and
Then
fire.
he must be self-obsessed
Shitted in a
as well.
K-I-S-S-I-N-G.
Classified as a romantic. My father was a strict man.
Oh,
He couldn't
please.
forgive his son for failing academically.
Just be
He blamed my
mindful of where the
failure on
camera is,
time I
Del.
wasted inventing adventures,
She
dreaming of
will
a
not.
utopian landscape.
She will not.
I was brought up to believe that dreams, the power of the imagination, as well as all the things I loved as a child, were useless. Complete waste of time. It was as if he was telling me I was useless. And then again, maybe just that. Well, I think I was probably born too late.
You had a bad disc 3 ad, but you were
By the
pretty
time I was 15,
instrumental in
everything
a
there was to
lot
be
of
done had
times
already
here.
been done.
It had never beaten like last
Western
boss.
territories were colonized. The jungles had been explored. There was no wilderness for me to wander into. No jungles for me to cut my way through. I guess that's how I ended up roaming the country. Well, granted, I picked a few fights along the way, played with fire, gambled on my life a few times. But none of that comes close to the truth I'm searching for. I yearn for something far greater. I can't quite explain myself, but it's as though I'm on a quest for some intangible treasure of sorts. Koudelka, I envy you. You have psychic powers that few are blessed with. Being born a gypsy, you can choose to live how you wish.
And who gave you the right to act as if you figured me out? Do you have any idea how I was raised? You make me laugh. Adventures. Please, you haven't the slightest clue. Do you have any idea how much pain my psychic powers have brought me? My father died when I was only a child.
Sad
I
being a
predicted
psychic.
the exact time, place, and
Tough out there being a
end of
wizard.
my father's life. Imagine that, predicting your own father's death. You know, I was cursed as a child, being given powers not meant for a child. And my mother, she was so frightened and so full of hatred for me. She tried to kill me with her very hands.
Dang,
The gypsy
get you a new
elders got
mom.
together, decided to excommunicate me. I was only 9 then. Do you have any idea how a 9-year-old child survives without the help of a living soul? Treasures, you must be joking. Have you ever cried and begged for your next meal? Did you ever sell your body, seeking shelter from the frigid night air? I used to be just like Charlotte. When she cried and said, "No one has ever loved me." Oh, her words cut straight through me. It was me she was talking about. Just like her, I wish that everybody would die and harbored a hatred for all mankind. But you see, Charlotte has made her peace. And poof, 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 gone to heaven.
Boop, 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 boop.
Me, I'm still alive and still all alone. No one has ever lent a helping hand. No one.
Koudelka, you?
I not as free as you make me out to be. I am a poor, dirty, ignorant woman who threw her gypsy pride to the dogs in order to live. But you see, even someone like
She's
me
gonna fall in the
can
fire.
do good.
Honestly.
She's listing dangerously.
I'm concerned about the alcohol to human ratio here as well. She's gonna fucking go up. Just instantly explode.
Someone called Elka Taxi, get her out of here.
Delco, where's your horse? Where'd you park your horse?
Tell me they need me.
I know you brought it.
Should you ride a horse drunk? That sounds dangerous.
Don't do it.
Ever.
Instead of taking her keys, you're taking her horse. Dang.
It's done. It's completed.
James finished his work. Where am I?
Hey! That's a good question. Where are you?
This the right way? This is the right way. That was very silly. Drunk voice was horrible.
Yeah.
Like, there weren't voice actors back then. And they've done a very good job so far, but voice actors did not exist at this time. And if you ask them to, on top of doing the voice acting, do a drunk voice, it's not going to go well.
Yeah.
I do want to quickly run and save.
Do
So I
it.
don't ever have to replay the cutscene again. And because we're right here, and because I need the loot, so...
Fair. I need to go refill my water. It's good time for break. Break
Quick break.
time. Go pee, get water, grab snack if you gotta.
Just a quick save.
Yeah.
I got snack. Beautiful.
I'm back. With water and a cookie. And I'm excited about it.
What are you excited about? I just got back.
Oh! Said I have water and a cookie. I'm excited about that.
Cookie.
Mm-hmm.
Cutscene. Oh, big cutscene.
Ooh!
Koudelka!
My god.
Nice. Well, no, everyone's talking about being psychic and how hard it is to be a psychic. Oh, never mind. You have to use your crystal ball to predict what I was going to talk about. Tree. Koudelka. Is Koudelka a Welsh thing?
I don't remember.
It's got enough consonants.
Right.
Is this a new guy? Wibbly Snake Man? He's dancing.
I feel like we've seen him before, but I don't remember if there was a snake or not.
Oh yeah, he just got demolished. It doesn't matter if he was new or not, he's gone now.
Yeah.
There was a dancing boy here once. I love him, like, grubbling over with his axe. It just looks very funny. And he runs so slow.
Yeah.
5,000 damage to that one. Well, just... The random encounters, like, stopped getting harder at, like, this 2.
Yeah. It's made it a little hard to gauge, like, what level you need to be.
Yeah.
For other things.
I still level up like crazy. It's just not ever difficult to win the fight. Just in case Dex becomes a thing. I don't want Dex to be a thing. Oh, 3 elixirs. Full HP and MP. Who's this guy? Does he need an arm? Can't do a lot. A lot of trees in the way. It's just the one tree, actually. Fuck. This is the books in the other room, isn't it? It's probably the bugs. We'll assume it's the bugs.
Oh, jeez.
I'm not sure if we were getting Naruto.
No,
But
we're
then
we're
I
good.
remembered
Sorry.
probably biscuit time.
Yeah, it was good and delicious and
What are you doing? Donkey just went up. Why can't you go down?
and I didn't want everyone to hear me just going ham on this delicious raspberry cheesecake cookie. All right.
Casket has been dragged. This does not help me.
All right, Del, got any other insights on that?
I think this is the books on the bookshelf. Which is fine, it's not far. Baby! A wiggly thing.
I love the wiggly baby. My poor
Me too.
lad.
I love him. Ooh, guys are leveled up. Which is not really what I want, because I want to be able to just use them infinite times without ever reloading. Oh, did that guy not die?
Oh, jeez.
Okay, this is a serious guy. He takes 2,000 damage and it doesn't kill him.
Oh, jeez.
Maybe the random encounters heard me and got harder dead quick. I don't know what movie we're doing, but it didn't do it. Gun level went up. We're level 3 gun. Tiny baby shot a 15 damage bullet. It shot a nerfed Koudelka. That's adorable. It's never gonna hit. It hit?
Ooh! James,
Doesn't
good
do a lot
job
of
on your
damage.
63 points of damage, buddy. All
Doing-
63 points of it.
Baby's very resilient to bullets. That's unusual.
Not usually what you
In
hear
a
about
toddler.
babies. Toddlers are tough. Don't know about that one, though. Toddlers
go.
hate rocks. Known fact.
Hit rocks. Trying to slide on the ground, the rocks tear up the knees. It's the only thing that can. Are you kidding?
More
My controller's
levels?
gone again.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know what's causing this.
I don't
It
know.
might be something. The computer might be trying to work out what my controller is again. It does that sometimes.
It just forgets.
Yeah.
What is this?
It knows it's a wireless controller.
Yeah, but what is it?
Okay, I gotta save and load it up again. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Gotta do what you
I
gotta
don't know
do.
why it's broken.
Because it wants to be as rude as possible.
Why has
I
it done
think.
that twice? This is horrible.
Mm.
Nothing's happening at all, and it's the Kish?
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
here.
sorry. Sound went weird.
Oh, jeez. No,
Maybe
I'm
it's
here.
just everything just exploding.
Oh, God.
His dog. The controls are working again,
Okay.
which we like to see.
There we go.
Every random encounter is leveling people up. By
mean,
people, I
that's
mean
nice.
everyone.
We do like the levels. I'm not gonna be mad about the levels.
We like the levels. We like a good level.
And if we're leveling every encounter, that might be a good indication that we need the bigger numbers.
Possibly. I don't know how this game thinks about those numbers.
I'm thinking in relation to bosses more than regular guys. I get worried that we're gonna get smushed.
Yeah.
And if we can make James bigger, that's cool. That's neat.
Can anything stop big gems?
I mean, there was that gargoyle in the
Yeah,
church. He could stop James.
Okay, that's not helpful.
Yeah, no.
Alright, I'm just gonna guess. Unless there's a thing. It's not.
Did we go through the door that we blew up?
Yep,
Okay.
that's where we were.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Like, did not. Didn't.
This is not helpful. Secret pain people light. Have we used that yet?
Oh, I don't Oh, no? I don't think.
Kayshurrr, you okay?
No. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, what's in that cookie, man?
Listen, still recovering from that walk earlier. It was hot.
Yeah,
Did tell you I had the mush brain.
He got the mush bread. Fine, you just need to cool your head to a reasonable temperature and it'll reconstitute.
Yeah. We need to find a pipe organ.
Yeah, I got that. That's what I'm looking for the thing for.
Oh.
It's up here. I think we want to press secret pin people light or something.
Secret pain people light.
Secret pin people light. Unless that's a puzzle that we've already done.
I don't know that we've used it. But I don't know what we've... Oh.
Secret pin people light.
Secret pain people light. Whoa! Oh god. It's horrible.
Does the tree go?
Or did the casket move?
Could have dragged the casket.
Did casket
there were-
drag?
There was evidence to suggest that the casket had been dragged.
Oh.
I'm seeing a casket. Oh, it's been dragged.
Oh. Amazing.
Please go down the stairs, Doc. That could be the tagline for this game. Subtitle.
That's a dead man.
Patrick.
I don't know nothing about no skeletons.
Just hanging out down here?
Just chilling.
Wild.
Hey,
What are you doing?
What's that? No, don't!
I'm not asking for your help. This is my problem. None of you need to die with me here.
Okay, James.
Okay, bye. Koudelka!
Dang.
Do we need this for anything?
Well, we need to find... Oh, well, I was gonna say we need to find a cauldron, but I think we
Okay,
found a
it could
cauldron.
be the cauldron of life that we're looking for. There's a chance.
Remember, we have to throw the arm into a pot. Chuck it on in there, I guess.
Just let me have a look at the other stuff first. Oh, okay, never mind. Throw Daniel's arm in and call upon the power of fire. Well, I guess we could do that.
Are you sure?
Sounds good to me.
Let's proceed.
Saint Daniel Scodius, protect us from these evil spirits and grant us inner strength. Amen.
James kind of picked power of fire for us.
Yeah. Oh god.
Thou, who were created and born out of dust, now go quietly and return to thy maker!
Koudelka! I think you're right about the disc mod just being cutscenes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of seeing that. I mean,
Are we in a
we're
new
getting...
place?
Yes?
I'm gonna check the ground level first. don't think we've been here. Oh, never mind. Who checked the ground level?
Nothing good
Sounds
there.
Painfully incorrect. That's a new guy.
Ooh, he's only got one
Oh.
leg.
He's a wibbly wobbly rock man with one leg and he's having trouble.
Don't knock him over.
I'm gonna knock him over. Gonna
Knock
take a
him
few bullets
over.
to knock him over.
Oh god.
Gonna get you. Didn't get you. Fine, it's just my distraction, James.
Dang, Del.
Oh, that's a big guy.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, we've done close to 4,000 damage. I think very slightly under. It's a lot
Big
more
guy.
health than the normal I have.
I mean, he's also just very large. In general,
Yeah.
can fit a lot of life into that guy. Holy fuck!
Ah!
Oh god!
Oh wait,
I
it's
mean-
fine. James is a beast.
That's still a lot of damage.
A little bit of damage.
Just keep James up there.
Yeah. James is doing great. Good job, James. This is gonna hit both.
Yeah. Nice.
That guy is on 3,000 health too? He's a
Heck.
very slight recolor of the glass man.
Yeah. Still got his hand attached to his hand though, so that's good. Yikes, these guys hit hard.
Yeah, a little bit hard. I would like you to cast heal on yourself, James.
Healer, heal thyself. Hey!
Okay, these guys are a bit bigger than usual.
But does that mean we get like 2 levels per encounter now?
Oh my, 2 levels. We get at least 1 level per encounter.
Just 1 level.
Tragic.
They're all very close to leveling up again, though, so...
Right, so, like 1.5 levels.
yeah.
Oh.
Oh god. Well, here's that other half level we needed. Oh!
This, I thought it went off pretty quick. This might have been be a scripted one.
Tentacles.
Didn't really mean to shoot the one right at the back. I mean, they don't seem to enjoy the power of fire, right?
Generally speaking, plants hate fire.
I'm a big fan of the power of fire. How about the power of axe? Yeah, they don't mind. They don't mind that. It depends who's wielding the axe, I suppose.
Yeah. Oof.
Okay, everything hits for like 1,000 damage now. That's fine. We're used to this. I don't think that was super effective. I'm gonna try water. James is poisoned, but that's fine. We don't worry about that. Squiggler. Ed. It's fine. Decent damage on the rifle. I want this to heal them. Please don't heal them.
Jesus!
They went crunch. Does crunch not mean anything in this world? I should not have made James punch them. It doesn't do anything. We might be on shotgun. We might be in shotgun territory.
Okay.
It may be time to permanently swap the rifle out.
Oh god.
It's fine. James can actually take 1,000 damage. It's not that bad. It's
Yeah,
not the worst thing that happened to him that day.
still just scares me. It's a big number is the thing.
Go cast it. That's fine.
Acceptable.
What are you doing, Squiggly? You gonna squiggle? Just stand there and heal yourself, James. I think Ed should be able to finish this guy off. There he goes.
Nice. Good job, Ed.
Oh, he resists his own cure spell, I remember.
Wasn't great. Wasn't very
He-
good.
He resists his own cure spell.
Is his pie too high?
His pie is so high. His pie is sky high.
His pie is sky
Tries to
high,
get through a
huh?
mountain of pie. Is that not dead?
It's
Okay, it's dead.
okay. I was gonna say, if it's not, it's gotta be real dang close, right? Like, nicely
Yeah, he's
done.
2 levels up from that one at least.
Yeah.
Okay,
Don't
we
think
only
you
got
got
one.
it. Yeah.
It looks like it.
Yeah. Real close to the next level though.
Keeps happening.
Yeah. Oh!
Ed got 2.
Good job, Ed.
James is a professional stander. What is this?
Idols! You can equip, or you can give them to a character and it permanently upgrades whatever stat they have. Like whatever stat it says.
Well, Ed's strength. And then Pie and Mind go to Delk. No, Pie could go to Ed.
Yeah, I mean, if he's already got, like, insanely high pie.
Ed's Pie's not great, but he could definitely use a little bit just so he didn't get blasted from the back row.
Yeah.
And Delk could get Mind, so your spells hit.
There we go.
How much did that boost it by?
I think it's 3?
Yeah, it looks like. Phew. It's not 1.
Oh, jeez.
This is fine.
Delka, please.
She never goes up the stairs.
This is too many stairs for one area, please.
Oh.
Oh, God.
I think I stood on some tentacles again. Yeah.
Who is that in the background?
That's Jim.
Jim?
Ed, you should definitely start thinking shotgun thoughts. I need to remember.
Shotgun thoughts. Shotgun thoughts.
Ed also needs to move away from Delk. Just for AoE purposes. Get big.
Big Ed.
Big Ed. I was hoping they'd line up. Miss!
Oh,
Waka dodges spells.
sad.
Give me the shotgun. James, any minute now you could do that boost strength. He shot 3 times. He shot 3 at once. The miracle of 3 at once. Delk's gonna finish off that tent. Ed and James are gonna work on Tentacle Man. These big shots.
Yeah. Love it.
That guy. Should finish it. Looks like he did it. Had to tell when the camera moves.
Yeah.
There we go.
Was lilting off to the side though, so.
He went crunch. He's getting crunched. Are you okay? He can't take that.
Yikes.
That's not cool.
Yikes, 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 yikes.
That he can't just deal with and be fine. That's James's limit. You okay, James? I don't even think the heal's gonna. He's not quite on full, and he needs to be on full to not die instantly to that. That were a big one. Is that guy gonna get a second turn? No? We'll just take a step back. Whoop. And then we'll, Big and Ed. Okay, no, he does that. He doesn't just do it because you got too close to him. He does it because he's mad. But he did have to move to do it. So Delk can revive. I do need this man to go away.
Yeah.
We have Roman nuts. This is fine. He's fine, folks. Never better. And Ed just keep blasting. That were a really bad one, Ed.
Ed, come on.
How does reflect work? Let's find out. Please stop punching me. Okay, just one, that's fine. We can heal that. Ah, that's why you only did one. Hey, we are dangerously low on shotgun shells.
Yeah.
That did not last long. Please go away! don't know how much a potion heals.
Hopefully enough?
It's not a lot.
No.
It's not a huge amount. Jesus Christ, this guy has so much health.
Yeah. That's a big lad. Please, Root, you have to die.
It's not even like a boss, it's just a big guy. Unless it is a boss.
It is a boss.
Okay.
Can confirm. Jesus!
Hey!
Good
Stop
job,
blasting.
Ed!
Just never stop blasting.
Holy shit!
Okay, Delk leveled up twice.
Nice!
Hmm.
Big int.
Big brain.
Ed leveled up twice.
If he's gonna be using a sword, he does need to have it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I can get him up to enough that like he gets 2 shot instead of 1 shot before we have to fall back on the sword because we're out of bullets. James, keep doing what you're doing, bud. You're doing fine. Doing great out there.
Jesus! James is so large.
It's a big James.
My god. Ed. Don't discard.
He's done James Bergson, that's fine. I meant to use the pie idol on it as well. I didn't want to give James any treats because he's not. We're not friends.
He doesn't deserve it. So, what's the reasoning for going on top of the burning building? I mean, I know for us it's the only direction we had to go, but I'm curious as to what the logic for the characters is.
Hell of a view. Why can't I go here if there's nothing here? Are you kidding? Oh. I no longer have the pendant. What pendant? Did I ever have a pendant?
Was it the, like...
I
was
don't
it a
remember ever
brooch?
any mention of a pendant ever at any point
Yeah.
in the game. I'm sure it's fine.
I was thinking of the thing that we got from the little girl, but I think that was a brooch and not a pendant. So I take that back.
Oh.
Something is exploding through us?
Hey, when it just starts
Yeah.
dialogue.
Oh!
Lady. Well. So I think that's not what we're meant to do. Is it because I didn't have this pendant that just appeared?
Oh my god!
Pendant that's never been mentioned until right now?
Hold on. Oh. Boy.
Everyone drank from the wrong cup. It won't. I don't think it ever stops saying game over. I think I need to reset the console to get it to stop saying game over.
Oh no, when's the last time we
There
saved?
we go. Oh,
Oh.
before everything was on fire.
Oh.
So
Oh.
what's this pendant and where is it? And is it past that point or not?
Hold on, reading.
I'll just run in circles and fight like regular guys so the big plant won't be as hard. We do have a temporary save. Wait, was this right before it exploded?
That's a good question.
Can we go back, or do we just get to see everyone blow up over and over again?
Which pendant?
We'll just walk away. It's bad in there. It's not mentioned a pendant that I can remember up to this exact moment.
Yeah.
This is the first mentioning of any pendant.
Can we?
Did the guides not mention a pendant either? Because we need a pendant.
I'm trying to understand if it's a pendant that we get from like a random encounter.
Oh no.
Can we look at our inventory dead quick?
Sure. What part?
Let's look at equipable. No pendants
Don't have
in
much
there.
there.
Weapons?
Is a pendant a weapon?
Maybe? No. Okay. Alright. Hold on. Searching. Oops. Oops.
It can be found in the fountain in the inner grounds after giving the statue icons their missing jewelry. If discarded or not picked up, it will appear as a drop in the area before the final boss.
Okay, then we'll need to take out some black cats.
Just fight cats.
Fight cats?
Well. Oh no, come on. I need a good place where I can run around. Okay, no, there's no random encounters?
There should be...
We'll come down a bit. There were definitely random encounters down a bit.
Yeah. It says that there should be black cat spawns on the 3rd floor of the church. So back up?
Like in the room where you explode if you walk too far?
I guess? Yeah?
Please go up the stairs, Delk. Delk, we've talked about this. You need to go up the stairs.
Delk, I know you're scared of the room. It's fine. It's fine.
Alternatively, I could load the save before we ended up here and run to the fountain and find it. I'm sure we checked the fountain.
I thought we had.
Man.
We could also, when we go into the room, see what it says?
Well, straight away it says, oh, it's bad that you don't have the pendant.
Yeah, but specifically, what does it say?
Does you feel a sense of dread, knowing that you don't have your pendant? Very important pendant that stops your skin from falling off.
Yeah. I think it should be an equipable, like, not armor, but necklace and stuff like that. Yeah. That word that my brain wouldn't pull up for me. And it doesn't matter who has it on as long as someone has it on.
Nice. Just gotta find it.
Yeah. But apparently, cats are very easy to defeat, and they give good experience, so...
I found a girdle sword.
Excuse me?
Was that a cat? Would that be
No.
considered a cat? No, okay.
We're looking for the cats that drop the
The little
cat's
cats.
eyes.
Yeah, that
Little
makes sense.
cats. Yeah. Yeah.
Just haven't seen any. One more thing, Church. Feeling of uneasiness steals over you as you realize you no longer have the pendant.
Okay.
This is the 4th floor.
Okay, so we need to go back down. I'm sorry.
I didn't think I could get in the 3rd floor.
So maybe it's just that like
The 3rd floor seems to be on
the
fire.
walkway, the 3rd floor walkway.
But there weren't any encounters there. That's where we started. Oh my god, Delk, please. Delk, I need you to walk down the stairs.
Church, 3rd floor.
Yeah, but it's written by a crazy person. There could have been any
Yeah.
floor.
Oh, it's true.
Can I get in? Can I just come in and look at the fire? Oh, come on. Wait, we might have to load a save from before. And check out the fountain.
Well, it says that you can do it, like, now. Yeah, we might have to.
It says that, but it's written by a crazy person, Kish.
Yeah!
He thinks there's random encounters here. Okay, maybe there's one random encounter here. Maybe the random encounter rate's just really low here. It's not the right guy! No way. I only care about cat. Come on! I want to fight this guy! There's a cat that's got my fucking necklace. What's the drop rate?
The cat
Could-
should
like, I could
drop
probably-
it pretty...
Okay. Because I could, like, run and pick it up. Not too badly, but then I would have to fight the boss again and stuff.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern with having to go back to the fountain. It's just a matter of getting the creature. But if that was one of the giants, which is not one of the not one of the enemies that should be spawning where we need to be. So maybe
So
this
he's
isn't
got
the 3rd floor.
the floor wrong because he's a crazy person.
Possibly.
So this is definitely the 3rd floor, because the one above it is the 4th floor. Was that last guy a guy who's supposed to spawn there? The like, wiggly guy?
Possibly.
He was, like, here somewhere. Let's try over here. There's a slightly more ground. It's just in the fountain in the courtyard, right? Because I have, like, non-patience for this.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, let's go to the courtyard. When did it appear in the fountain in the courtyard?
That's a good question. I do not know.
How long has it been in the fountain in the courtyard? Because it was not there initially. There's definitely been a point where it spontaneously appeared in the fountain.
Yeah.
Vitally important quest item. Without which you'll melt.
The the wiki, which is also written by crazy people, says that cats should be able to appear anywhere on the tower, which is unhelpful.
Yeah, that were not appearing.
No. Alright, well, we'll just run back to the...
It'll take seconds to run back to the thing.
Yeah. Just have to do the big tentacle fights again, but you know what? You're dealing with that.
Well, the first one were easy, and the second one, just make Ed big.
Yeah.
The classic big Ed strategy. Does the wiki know when the pendant appeared in the fountain? And if the game ever mentioned that there was a pendant somewhere that I needed to pick up from a fountain that wasn't there the first time you checked the fountain?
Wait, is this the... It might be the pendant that she, like, dropped at the very beginning of the game.
But then why was it not in the fucking fountain when I checked the fountain?
That's a good question.
Maybe there's like 1 pixel of the fountain. I literally don't remember her ever dropping a pendant.
It was, like, in the very first cutscene when she's, like, climbing up the,
If you say so.
It happened.
Really?
I do
No,
remember
the
this.
literal first cutscene of the entire
Yeah.
game.
Yeah!
Cool. And then it's not mentioned
And then
for the
it's never
entire game.
mentioned again.
And it's the only thing keeping you from spontaneously melting.
It is necessary to get this in order to complete the game. The fuck?
Ah, so too close together. This guy debuffs strength and also is immune to magic.
Oh, jeez.
The cat fucked. Okay, don't fight this guy. I'll remember.
Sometimes you just need to leave the fight. That's okay.
I need numbers so the things will be easier.
Yeah.
Go. Where is it? It's over here. No. Other side then.
Is it this fountain? Because that's not a fountain.
No, I can't. This is just. I don't know what this is. I'm sliding on it.
It's just a pool.
It's a basin, if anything. I've glided all the way around it, can't be?
Alright. I figured if we gotta be thorough. Best to check.
Well, there's a big actual, like,
yeah.
fountain. Oh, come on! I hate the screen transitions.
They're not good.
I've ended up back exactly where I started. Okay. So down this way. And then the other side, the right side of the screen. Because it looks like they both lead to the same place, but that is not the case.
That is a lie. Do not believe it.
Dead bird.
You showed that bird.
Yeah. You don't do anything, James. Go home. Extremely dead bird.
Bird got zapped.
Yeah, I'll do it.
What? Zap? Bird died? Didn't even make a noise. That's so
Dropped
many
16
ferns.
ferns.
Holy shit! Don't know that we need this many ferns.
This is a fountain, right?
Yeah, I think so.
We 100% checked the fountain.
That was not there before.
No.
I think we would have noticed the giant golden glowing thing in the fountain before.
It's rubbish. Does stop you melting though.
Yeah.
It could be important. Only reduces pie. She does kind of need pie. I'm luckier now though.
But now we have the pendant so we don't explode.
Okay.
Hooray!
Right, you glad I kept a save from before the event, the incident. I don't know how far before the incident.
Yeah.
I think we got the bomb ready. I only think that. It's upstairs, right?
Delk?
I can't remember if it's upstairs or not.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I have no idea. This map is doesn't make sense to me.
It's a bit wibbly wobbly. I have the anti-melting amulet.
Perfect.
Vitally important to progression. And then we'll just fucking save again in case there's something else.
Yeah.
Please don't be that ghost again. I want something I can actually fight. Alright, pointy man. We can fight
Easy
pointy man.
peasy. Not even a problem.
We need something that's not immune to like several different types of attack.
Yeah.
That way we can show them.
Get him out of here.
Easy. Now I level up 3 times, right?
One could hope.
Takes a really long time to do the like calculations.
Yeah.
Has to tabulate all the experience points.
Look, it's adding them up one by one. Takes a minute to
Doing it on
count.
its fingers.
Yeah.
Hey, having to reload your gun in the menu, James. Ed, not James. James doesn't get a gun.
James doesn't get anything. No treats,
He only
no
gets
gun.
the X because it makes him have more max health.
Yeah.
Is this before or after we checked down the other side and found the weird sword?
Oh, that's a good question.
See if
Do
I have the
we
tinderbox.
have life drain?
Do we need that to not melt? Is that important?
I mean, might be good for Ed.
Yeah.
Because I assume it'll heal him. With a name like Life Drain.
We still have Daniel's arm, and that is our only... Oh, we have the nitroglycerin too.
Mm-hmm.
And we keep the ground mask, so I think we must have used the tinderbox.
Must have.
So we have the magic sword just kicking around.
Perfect. You'll love to see it. Time to do an explosion.
It's fine.
We've seen things go boom.
How did this happen? Who
I
would do such a
wonder.
thing?
In my house of God.
Fuck, I can't remember. Wait, I got it.
Pain
It's the note in my
people
head.
light.
Secret
pain
something
light.
people light. Secret pain people light.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Secret pain. People light. That just lives in my brain now.
Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. Just gonna be thinking about secret pain people light a lot. I guess.
I'm sure that's healthy. It's a normal thing to be thinking about. Please go down the stairs.
She will not.
She will never go down the stairs. Koudelka will never go on the stairs.
Throw that bad boy in there.
Sure.
Yes, I'm sure.
Beautiful.
Alright. Time to kill some tentacles.
And additionally, this is gonna be the cat. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna kill him though.
He did give us some idols and big experience, which was nice.
Yeah. It hits gems for like 1,000 damage a pop, but you know.
James can take
That's, yeah.
it. That's what James is here for, so I don't want to hear no complaints.
Big Ed. It didn't take long to go and get the thing. It's just like I wouldn't have remembered that the pendant was a thing if I'd played the game through, like if I were playing it every day and we played it over the
Yeah.
course of a month. So
Yeah.
cool. Thanks, game. He just got in his friend's way.
I mean, that's fine.
Very rude of him.
Nice job, Ed. I like it when you shoot 3 times.
I love it when he shoots 3 times. He doesn't need to reload now though, because it's got 1 left.
Yeah. Nice.
I just really like the sound the wasp ball makes. I don't know why.
It's very good. It's a very satisfying sound.
Yeah. And they explode. Oh, James, you hate to see it.
Do I
Kinda ham to a nicer guy.
though?
Hey!
Get him outta here.
Big Ed!
Big Ed.
hate that he put the X doesn't go in front of his hand.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, we did level up twice off that random. Yeah, everyone seems to have leveled up twice.
Nice. We'll take it.
He's fine.
Only
Oh,
health,
got a
James.
Dex,
That's
Wait.
tragic.
Alright, no, Dex is garbage.
Yeah.
Still goes to Ed.
Ed gets all the treats right now.
Needs them. He's gonna get
It's
big.
true.
He's already quite big. What if? Biggest.
Bigger. Oh.
Maximum Ed.
Largest of the large. Ed. Boss? Boss.
Is this a boss? The one that's just 3 tentacles?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
All tenses, boss.
I mean, they're definitely like scripted encounters. So I don't know. These 3?
Dang. You tell them.
The usual opener.
Get James up there.
Don't cast it on the enemy, please. Here they doesn't. It doesn't just like go between your people first, and you have to like try
Yeah.
to make it go on the enemies. Like, I don't want to buff the enemy.
Consider we don't do that actually. Whoa, 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 whoa.
It's fine.
Gonna have to hit him harder than that to make it make a difference. But also, please don't hit him harder.
Just don't hit him. Just generally. That's a reasonably big spell that guy just threw. James's pie is ludicrous. Actually, Ed's pie's not that good, so maybe pie just doesn't do that much, actually. I mean, he gives you more MP, and that's lovely.
Yeah.
I mean, getting it for the magic defense element. Come on, before the move. I want to blow everyone up in one go.
Crap.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's do it, Delka.
One dead.
Beautiful.
When they fall over the other way, they're eventually gonna die. It takes them a minute to think about it. 2 shots, Ed. Come on. Ed, let me down.
Ed. You can do better than this, buddy. I know you can. Thank
There we
you.
go. 3
That's
shots.
more like it. See, he was saving the second shot from the first one so that he could tack it on to that other one. He was rusing us.
Why does Delk get her less than Germs by spells when Delk has less pie, but more other brain stats?
Maybe because she's just better. Delk's just built different.
That's true. That could be it. Keep making him big, James. That does good luck.
I love that here.
I don't know about switching him to melee, because I wanna, because I've got those nice swords now, but last time we were thinking about that was like 2 discs ago, and I haven't leveled up his health since.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of working on leveling up his health now, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm trying it now. We might be a little bit late.
Yeah. just a bit. Maybe we'll get lucky and get some vitality idols or whatever they are.
I'd like some idols. I don't care about James's other numbers. Oh,
Agility
Two-
and dex.
I have to throw away something.
Game consider, we use the idols now.
And which things are equipped? I want to throw those ones away. I have a pistol. Yeah, I have an automatic pistol. DA pistol can go away. I have too many pistols already. I have
Too
many
much
pistols and all of them
pistol.
are bad.
Yeah.
Guess who's getting the utility idols?
I'm so surprised.
And the dex idol, why not?
Just all the good little treats.
Not a big dex head, but you know, if someone's gotta get it, it's gonna be Ed. Ed should probably be holding the shotgun right now too. Unless, how many arrows have I got? Doesn't say in this menu.
Huh.
27.
Okay.
We'll go shotgun. We beat me shotgun last time.
Yeah. Let's go.
Delk, please, killing me. I'm gonna assist it before we do it, just in case it's scary.
Makes
I've
sense.
been through a lot.
Good call.
Delk, go up the stairs!
No. She doesn't wanna.
Step on that orange dot on the floor. You best be ready for a boss fight.
Alright. Big boy time.
Okay, so Ed, shoot gun a boss. Delk's gonna kill the one who's not the boss. Oh, you know, the other boss, since I guess all tentacles are bosses.
Yeah, but she'll kill the littler boss.
Yeah, she's gonna kill the small boss, and then focus on just buffing Ed. Like crazy. James, you move up, you just start buffing Ed, you don't worry about nothing else.
Make Ed big!
All comes down to Ed.
Don't let us down, Ed.
It's gonna hit both, but it's actually gonna miss the boss because he dodges spells.
Tragic, really.
Yeah. Wish he didn't.
Yeah.
I like that he's in the way actually now. So the boss can't just beat the crap out of me.
Yeah!
I keep calling him the boss. The boss. Three of these are both equally dangerous adversaries.
No. No, I don't think so.
There's no difference between them.
Thrap! That's headed in the right direction.
Yeah. I want to move Delk up to this row just in case James gets knocked over. And then we'll try and finish off that other little wibbly guy. I suppose it's possible he only dodges water, it's just very unlikely. We'll try the fire spell. Let's head out of bullets. We have
Yeah.
many more to go.
Bulleted up. Not
Don't think I got the
ideal.
move. Ah, he's gonna die anyway. It's fine.
Ooh!
He only dodges water.
Okay, alright.
Oh, yeah, this makes this a lot easier.
Delk can fire.
But I am gonna need to move it up a little bit so Delk doesn't get run over.
Yeah.
It's fine, he's casting. He's casting. Ow!
Yikes. Less than ideal.
It's not all about Ed anymore, though. I know he's vulnerable to fire. So, let's hop back a little bit. And we want James up there, please. If James could have a turn, beautiful.
You love to see it.
If I put James all the way over here, he still can't get past, right?
I think so. I believe that's how that works.
He has to come all the way over here to push me over. It's so good. He just never stops shooting. You should probably also not be too close to the front. I just didn't want him to run past the now. Yeah, I didn't want him to knock down James and then just walk past him.
Makes sense.
Which is always a problem.
Yeah.
That's the big issue that can happen to you. James? You gonna squiggle over there and try and get him?
No.
You squiggled the wrong way?
That's what they do sometimes. It's fine.
then
He's
he
fucking
died.
dead.
That was much easier, actually. Knowing what I was getting into.
Yeah.
And also hitting him with the fire spell by accident.
That definitely helped the situation go by a
Did a
little more
little bit of
nicely.
damage. Just a little bit of damage.
Yeah.
A little bit of that. A little bit of that. It could maybe take one hit. It's definitely can't take two, but I don't think I'm getting him up to that point at this stage.
Yeah.
Two Mend idols. Worst idol.
Ooh.
Both go to Delk.
Rude.
Well, at least you won't miss the normal way with the spells, unless it's like this chicanery going on.
Yeah.
She won't just miss with the spells.
Yeah. That makes sense. Alright, we got our pendant on.
I'm pretty sure Delk's wearing it, but let me check. We have pendant.
Perfect.
Stupid pendant.
It's
Degenerates in the pool.
necessary.
At some random point.
Get
Yeah,
down.
we don't feel a sense of dread because we're not wearing a pendant now.
Good.
Although we have one level lower than we were last time.
That's a tiny bit of a problem. Maybe.
See what we're up against.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Pulse from the plant, previously steady, it suddenly picks up pace until it feels as though the plant will explode.
Don't explode, plant. She goop. Dang! Duck said I got this. I have my stupid pendant.
Oh, jeez.
Oh! Oh! Oh, I hate it!
Not good.
Ugh. This is
Oh,
a bad
jeez.
lady.
Koudelka!
Oh god. It's a safe. Yeah.
It's fine. We can only go back a cutscene. Oh.
Ooh, new music. Oh god.
Do I kill the bad lady or run away?
I mean,
Okay, we're running away.
oh, oh.
I can't escape.
Hmm.
Well, that might be an issue for me. Because I also can't hit her.
I am concerned.
If it's like another thing with no obvious path forward because I've missed an item somewhere that was never mentioned before, we might
I don't think so.
call it for now.
That would be fair, but I don't think that's the case.
Maybe she just don't like guns. Could try the weirdo sword on her. We'll go just behind our bud. 6 damage from being exploded. That's good to see.
She can be beat.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Well, I don't know if she's bleeding, but you know.
Well, like, she bled numbers.
All right, perfect.
I got a sword.
Sword.
I like that it still goes 100 times before she goes.
Right?
Nope.
Mm.
Physical attacks do not work. That's fine.
But the noise.
Camera angle wasn't fine. Good try it.
Just let Delk explode her a whole bunch. The boys
yeah,
can
it's gonna
just
buff Delk. This is the
Yeah.
big Delk strategy we're gonna be employing. Oh. Well,
Oh.
it's fine. He wasn't doing anything.
Poor buddy.
We got Roman nuts. And she ran off
Yeah.
into the corner.
Roman nuts.
Went to all this trouble to get this silly magic sword and it don't even fucking work. This is far from the strongest of swords. New plan. Big Delk. It's about 10,000 damage. We got elixirs to throw if we need to get the MP back. And just go stand over here so you can throw elixirs at Delk. If you're not dead, which is sometimes bad. He's gonna have to work on not being dead on his own as well, because Delk's busy.
Yeah. Ugh. I hate how she moves. It's bad.
It's a bad spider lady. Nice.
Lovely.
Got even smarter while she was casting that fireball. 10.
Ooh.
About 1300 damage. She's changed stance. Does that mean she dead?
Elaine, are you? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful.
You're experienced, do you? It's gonna keep happening, isn't it?
Maybe. There is a possibility of that.
Oh, that's such a pain in the ass.
And it might switch every time. Like her weaknesses and stuff might change each time you come across her.
Sometimes. Oh my god. Is this random or is it just every floor?
It's every floor.
Okay, that's fine.
It doesn't happen super often. I mean, it very quickly, but not. There aren't too many of these, from my understanding.
Okay. Seems kind of like she just won't leave and has no life and will not go away.
I mean, that all tracks. Ma'am, you gotta stop doing that. It's just very
Oh,
annoying. And it hurts Ed a lot.
It hits it. 9. Alright, she's healed by magic now. Cool.
Not all magic.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
just certain elements. It's fine.
It's fine.
Smart.
She got smart.
I like it when she gets smart while she's casting.
Yeah, it means the cast is bigger. And she heals for even more. Okay. It's ice this time. Doesn't do a lot of damage.
No.
Does that mean it's because sword works now? Go get her, Ed. Sword works now.
Nice.
Does get
Oh,
her to make
God.
some of the worst sounds though.
Yeah. Really get to hear those, huh? Add the noises.
Hmm. That goes fast. You can out damage
Mm-hmm.
the lady.
I appreciate the fact that he can heal with his sword right now.
Yeah.
It's very helpful. Oof!
Yeah, these are big spells. You could do a double sword hit, Ed. I think you can do this.
We have seen him do it before. Ed, please. Crap.
No, we don't need to move. Just need to make Ed big forever.
Biggest Ed. James's
James's
magic level went
magic
up. Nice. Smack.
Trust Ed. Trust Ed Zerka.
Her little squeals.
He's not happy with the Ed situation. I'm gonna blast her again. It's probably helping end the fight faster than giving Ed minor boosts. Oh, it's not that good.
It's better than nothing.
It's a little bit better than nothing.
A little bit is better than none of it. Jesus Christ, Ed.
It's fine. Ed's strong. Don't fight fire Jilly on the enemy, please.
Please don't do that.
I don't want it to go any faster. I think I started today, not in the best of moods. But the silly angel boss was a lot.
Yeah,
And then
well,
the
that's
pendant
fair.
thing was a lot. Oh,
Yeah, it's kind of just been one thing after the other.
Yeah. I got to say Koudelka a lot.
Yeah.
Can't do
Oh,
nothing.
God.
Can't do nothing to Ed. Ed doesn't care. Ed's not interested.
Yeah, but I hated seeing her standing up.
She's
That-
very horrible. Kinda love it.
I'm just gonna keep just being horrified and repulsed over this boss. They did great. I hate it.
Yeah. Ooh. You can do 45 strength 2 now.
Ooh.
Can make
Love to
Ed
see
big
it.
fast.
Okay, Elaine, you have to be done now.
It's got a little bit of health. Ed sucked a lot of health out of her,
Yeah.
so that's good. Covering away, I'm gonna follow you. I'm gonna get you.
Nice. Good hits.
I'm doing it on purpose. It's twice as good.
6! Holy shit!
2 plus strengths now. In one turn.
Wowee! Oof. I know he's fine. It's just big number.
I think they might have envisioned me being larger than this when I got to this point in the game. But we can just get all our stats on the battlefield. It's fine. Why did that do
Ooh,
100?
Ed,
Not great, Ed.
buddy, you
Not what we're
gotta
looking for.
you gotta hit harder.
Is it the weird thing that happens with drone weapons when they get really low on health?
Possibly.
Just starts being crap or missing.
I mean, that's a good sign then, right?
Yeah, it's doing 0 now. Cool.
Yikes.
It's that cool thing they do. Can I reflect? Let's not try.
Might be worth it though.
No.
Oh, okay.
Ed probably will die, but that's fine.
Rip Ed. You've done a great job so far, buddy.
Yeah,
Your weapons just let you down now.
your weapon is switched off. He's fine. See a potion, Ed. 500 big ones, he's fine. By big ones, I apparently mean hit points.
Alright, Delka, let this be the last hit, please! Hey!
Just that easy, folks. Hell, I shouldn't give XP. I deserve to level up twice after each one of these encounters.
If only. Do quick heals and MP restores.
I use all my listals.
You got so many listals though.
Whiskey, MP restore? No.
Whiskey's health, I think.
Well, it just made her drunk. She's fine. It made her happier. That's fine to me.
Beautiful.
Gems don't get to have false stuff. Oh,
You got to go 2 screens without her getting you that time. Oh, jeez.
does this parasite you?
Right, though? Ah!
Oh, that's horrible.
Hate.
Koudelka. Oh, new music again.
I like that she gets her own boss musics.
Yeah.
God, she's horrible to look at.
Yeah.
Why does the boss design, like the monster designs in general in this game, go so hard, and I love it?
Tell you what, we'll fortify agility on Ed, and then even if it turns out she's completely immune to physical attacks, he'll still be going faster, which he can use to buff other people.
Alright, let's go.
Should maybe boost speed on Koudelka as well instead of N. Oh, damage! Might switch spell though, that one's a bit pricey. Spider casting.
Oh god. Delka, get your butt out of here. Yikes!
Just straight one-shot's Ed, huh?
Oh boy!
We have Romani. Just a full AoE that hits everyone. Kills Ed in one hit. Tell you what, Ed. You still got that crossbow.
Now'd be the time to use it.
Well, try if sword doesn't work.
I think the biggest downside to crossbows that you do have to...
Okay, sword doesn't work.
Yeah. Crossbow does need to be reloaded every time you use it.
Yeah,
But,
it's pretty
but it
quick.
should do big hits. And Ed fast.
Ed pretty quick.
Oh god, she's wiggling.
She's gonna knock Ed out every time she does anything, is the issue.
Yeah.
She's just gonna AoE the entire squad. Every turn. Tell you what. Let's eat an elixir to not die from this move. It just didn't quite get to the amount of HP the game was thinking of, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine.
Look, we got busy making Ed fast.
We can work with this.
Not the greatest, but not bad. We'll take it.
Yeah. Koudelka is almost dead. Probably wants to heal self. Can I AoE heal now? I should. I mean, she has AoEs, but I don't think I can do anything about them. So, like.
Yeah.
We just need to find a healthy equilibrium where we're able to do at least a damage and keep everyone relatively alive. Ed is dead.
Ed, did you not just hear what we were saying?
You have a, like, revive spell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, do the game up the slower. He'll be fine.
Where are you going, ma'am?
That's a lot of damage.
That's a little rude. Yikes.
It's okay. My son's back. His gun's unloaded.
Hmm.
Can't shoot from here. Trying to be silly. It's fine.
Do a shoot.
It's really low damage. Just nothing hurts her. I think this is just yeah, she just has the biggest numbers.
I mean, she is the big boss.
Oh, does she get to go before me? Cool.
Oh god.
Well, the kill's not gonna happen. And it sometimes gets bugged when they try and target someone who's dead now. And they take 5 minutes to take the next turn.
Oh jeez.
It's fine. We'll just get Ed back in there. I can't be bothered playing this game anymore, so if we lose, it's just the end. They all melted when they went to the final boss. Can revive everyone, but I can't do it other things and revive everyone.
Yeah.
I have to pick. This boss has like 3 times the stats of every other enemy in the game. It's just not been a thing up till right now. I need agility on Koudelka. Also,
Make Delk fast.
I need fast.
Fast Delka, as they call her.
I would like try the boss fight again, but I'm not gonna walk up the stairs and try the boss fight again.
No, that's fair.
Like ever in my entire life. So it's all down to this.
I was looking at this boss, and there's some interesting things.
Well, if you don't tell me now, I'm not gonna.
No, it's fine. It's stuff that you don't need to know. No matter what, it's gonna work out in our favor. I think.
Cool.
Just do what you can.
He's fine. What if Delk is going as often as Ed?
Can you imagine?
What the? James is so fucking slow. I was gonna use a potion, but he just never gets a turn.
Yeah. Did kind of just pump them full of blood and nothing else.
Hey, that's about 40 speed. You were higher than most of you. That's a bigger one than usual, huh?
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything that's like a good heal. What's a high potion good for?
1,000. I don't know if that's an actual.
1,500. It might as well be 1,000. It might as well be one.
Yeah. It's not good.
That's his turns for about 5-6 rounds. That's what he gets to do. Next turn of his, I'm going to try and revive Ed. Which is probably going to be in about 40 minutes. Why do you get another turn?
He heard you talking shit. Jeez.
Let's make Delk think better, please.
Delk, a big brain.
You doing the big AoE again? Can you just do that every turn? Is that allowed?
I think it might be allowed. Unless she's gonna stab him?
No,
Nah, that's a big
she
spell.
just stabs him when she's gonna stab him.
Yeah. Ma'am, this is illegal.
This is ass. Well, that's your last one.
Oh, jeez.
Still not particularly doing a whole lot of damage.
Yeah.
No need to heal everyone.
Consider. Don't heal.
Wait, are you supposed to lose?
I mean, that is an option.
Okay. This has been trash. The end of this game is shit.
Yeah, it's been less than ideal. Which is incredibly unfortunate because it started out real cool.
Yeah. I was worried they didn't, like, know what to do with all the numbers. Where to put them. What numbers to use, and they just pick them at random. I need those elixirs to give Delk stuff back. Well, we got high potion. Why is there not like healing item that's like not trash, but not the best one? Why does it go from useless to the one that's full health?
That is a very powerful question that I don't know that we'll ever get a proper answer for. They probably want you to like rely on like the heal spells and stuff, which is
Really, it's
silly.
Ah, there he
Yeah.
goes. Well, Ed's the front line now.
Yeah.
So here's the strat. She can't do the melee attack from the side, is what we're hoping. So we're just gonna line everyone up in a row.
Oh, jeez.
Oh hey, it's the big AoE. Give it a go, why not? Didn't even get to do it.
Yikes. Oh!
That's
Not the big AoE, but, you know, there goes
not
Ed.
great. She keeps moving. She's less than
Yeah.
ideal. I should have moved Ed one to the side. So when Ed died, it'd be where she is now. And then there's no way through.
Heck.
Phew.
Ma'am, you have too much everything.
Yeah, all of her stats are just way too high. There was no hope from the moment the fight started. And it's like 40 minutes of walking upstairs if you want another go. I was kind of suspicious. She just blew herself up to 3,000 damage.
Oh!
Oh hey, we should have been using that spell from the start. We should have known. Because I'm not doing it again.
Still got reflect on, which is nice. What are you doing, lady?
She heals.
Oh. Oh.
Okay, guess the game's over.
Oh! Rip.
They made the last boss impossible as a joke.
God, is this my fault? Do you blame me? Are you punishing me now because the path to my faith was tainted? I accept my fate. If it is your wish, then I accept my fate. He who has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to go into captivity he will go.
James, you're talking an awful lot for somebody who's dead.
With the sword he will be killed. I am what I am. I am content with my lot. I have always loved you, Elaine.
Oh?
Cool, you lose the fight and James just wins it in a cutscene. Good job, James. My favorite character, James, who I love. Never once doubted James, not even for a second.
Huh!
No! Flames are coming this way!
Don't be silly. There must be something we can do.
We'll be fine. Trust me.
I don't think they're gonna be fine.
It'll be fine. It's fine.
At least Roger Bacon is okay.
In these crazy times, young people push
That's all that
themselves
matters.
too much.
At the end of it all, he was the only one I didn't despise. Never mind, everyone is fine.
Oh my god.
Ah, the sun came
fucking hell. This is the worst ending. I mean, at least James is kind of dead.
Goodbye. We'll probably never see each other again.
One of your arms is not attached properly.
Yeah, it's just kind of hanging there,
Just
huh?
hanging out.
I haven't even asked
Yeah.
you yet. Will you tell me?
Oh, far down. You wanna adjust that?
He
Probably will help
dislocated
with the
it
horse.
Oh,
in the
that's
fall.
rich. I'll remember that.
Yeah, probably.
Treasure.
Really
just
badly
tight.
dislocated it.
He's just tied it on like the like that one enemy.
Is it okay, child, for you
Yeah.
not to follow him?
Yeah, it's okay. I have a feeling that someday.
It just does the actual ending if you lose the last boss fight, huh?
No. So there are two endings. One if you win, and one if you die. I don't know what the you win
Well,
boss
the boss
is?
heals, so no one will ever see that. 'Cause I am not. You have to just ask yourself sometimes, what am I willing to put up with? And that is too much.
Well, I'm sorry that the end of this whole stream, the end of this game has
Yeah,
been
this
not
far of this game is
good.
trash. It's fucking miserable. Oh my god. I guess they were doing the best, and then the crunch kicked in, and they had to just ship something. And then they were like, we've only 3/4 of the way through. What do we do?
just do something. I'm sure it'll be fine. It was not fine.
No.
But you did it! You beat Koudelka! You're free now!
I don't have to play any more of this game, which is kind of cool.
Yeah!
Ah, that sucked. I like this game for most of the way through the game, and then it was really shit for
But
like
they did it incredibly
several
bad.
hours. And I really wanted to get through it, so it was done and out of the way. Because it was
Yeah.
making me miserable, and also because we were supposed to finish it today.
I mean, we didn't have to finish it today, but we did. And now you
We
don't
did.
have to come back
I thought
to
it'd been
it.
longer than 3 hours actually, and you know what? It's out of the way. It's done.
Oh, it's slightly over 3 hours.
That was Delk. Some of it's good.
If you
Probably
play
just stop when you beat disc 3 though, because
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
worth playing any more of it.
No. So yeah, if you play Delk, only do the first 3 discs, and then just say, "Hey, I'm done now." Actually, and
Yeah,
it's
this
fine.
is fine. I'm happy.
You can probably do a grind and, you know, beat the gargoyle. Do that from the first couple of
Yeah.
discs if you want. If you want to.
Whenever I
challenge.
was looking for like guides and stuff, everyone had like the weird sword that we couldn't pick up. That never gives you any hint as to how you pick it up.
Yeah, apparently you
And,
have to beat gargoyle in order to get that.
Oh, cool. Like, that didn't even seem like a possibility when we were there.
Yeah.
It's gotta get real big.
I
I guess you're just meant to do that and then show up with the big sword and just chop off the boss's head with a big sword.
What the guide that I was looking at recommended was just to like cast reflect the entire time.
Yeah,
and have Ed just be big and do big moves.
Well,
and
we didn't have a big enough head.
we did not have a big enough Ed, but that's fine. It's fine.
I think if it won all the way up a tower, past 2 other boss fights with the same
Yeah.
boss, I'd get Ed and James killed. I'd put Koudelka in a corner, kill Ed and James in the tiles in front of diagonally to the side of Delk, and then just keep casting Reflect on Delk and using elixirs when she ran out of MP.
Yeah.
And I feel like that'd work, but I don't want to do it, so...
No, that's fair. You don't
Yeah.
gotta. That's it. We've done it. It's beat. We never have to come back. All done. Thank you for suffering through this. We could have stopped at any point, but
I
you
nearly
did.
did.
But yeah, I think that's gonna be stream today. I don't feel like
I'm
doing
done.
a raid. So
Cool.
we'll probably just
I
end
think
it
it's
there.
just us two anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it. Well, we're done now. Okay, bye.